Scariest story by far that I've ever read, and it's from the Appalachian Mountains. So let's get into it. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and I actually have an email where anyone finds this page can send me their ghost stories. In all honesty, I do get a lot of emails, and I have to say, without a doubt, the scariest ones that I've ever gotten are from the Appalachian Mountains, and this is one of them. The story comes from Bella, who says that her and her family moved to the Appalachian Mountains when she was about 14 in 2019. So the rules of the Appalachian land were not existent for any of them in their family. As Bella attends her first week of school, she meets two girls, Brooke and Sarah. They hit it off almost immediately, and after a couple of Snapchats here and there throughout the weeks, they decide they want to have a sleepover. Now, for context purposes, the way that the land is set up on this property is there's Bella's house, and then there is like a line of trees that outline the backyard. And that is what separates the property lines between Bella's yard and her neighbors. But we're not talking about like a normal fence line. We're talking about the fence line being a forested, wooded area. On the day of the sleepover, they all carpool home with Bella to her house. And the moment that they get to Bella's house, they start deciding on what they want to do for the night. Sarah immediately says that she wants to wander around the woods and tell scary stories. Bella agrees, and Brooke is a little hesitant because of what the locals have been saying about the woods. And when they asked their friend to explain, Brooke just said, I don't know, the locals said that it's dangerous to walk around the woods at night. Both Bella and Sarah are like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I've never heard of anything in my life that sounds like that. And they just kind of dismiss her. Now, upon nightfall, they follow the trail down to the wooded area. They bring some alcohol and some recreational items and decide to make a little party out of it. Eventually, they stumble across this little church in the middle of the woods and decide that is their camp for the night. As they're sitting on the stairs of this church, they are just talking, hanging out, when all of a sudden, Sarah needs to go to the bathroom. So she gets up and she walks around the side of the building. And after a couple of minutes of dead silence, Sarah comes sprinting back and says, we need to go. We need to go right now. Both of the other girls are like, what are you talking about? We just got here. We're having a good time. What's going on? Sarah does not explain, and she says, we just need to go. We need to go. So all three of them pack up and they head back to Bella's house. Now, it's important to note that they left the bottle of alcohol that they were drinking at the church because they were all kind of spooked after Sarah came back breathless and telling them that they needed to go. After they're back at Bella's house, Sarah explains that she, in fact, saw a pair of eyes watching her from the woods, and then proceeds to tell the girls that they need to lock all the windows and close the blinds. And she continuously tries to say, I tried telling you guys that the woods were dangerous. There's a reason why there's rules out here in the Appalachian Mountains. This isn't a joke. And right as she's explaining why they don't go into the woods, they hear a tap at the window. And it is loud enough where they all stop talking and kind of look at the window that is closed by the curtains. And as the silence ensues in the room, they hear another tap. This time the tap is loud enough where they all get so startled that they just leave the bedroom and move into the living room area where they didn't cover the window. And as they are all sitting in the living room, Sarah begins to cry out of pure fear. Obviously, with the window still being open, Brooke gets up to go close the blinds and immediately screams upon standing up. And when Bella is like, what happened? All Brooke could say was that she saw what Sarah was talking about. There was a woman standing at the property line. And obviously we're not talking about a normal looking human being. This woman was pale, emaciated, with jet black hair, and was standing at the property line looking directly at the girls through the window. At which point all the girls start joining hands and praying, eventually falling asleep after a while. They all wake up and Bella is the first one awake, walks outside, and the very first thing that she sees at her doorstep is a bottle of alcohol, the same bottle of alcohol that they left at the church, sitting at her front door. It's important to note that Bella says that this bottle of alcohol looked like it was drugged through the mud. She picked it up with a napkin, tossed it into the trash bin, and did not tell the other girls about it. About a year after this incident, Bella and her family decided to sell their home in the Appalachian Mountains and move back to Cincinnati. She never told anything to her parents out of sheer fear because I don't think her parents really knew about the rules of the Appalachian Mountains either. But her, Sarah, and Brooke are all still very close, and they all remember the story very vividly. And from a personal perspective, I don't know how people exist up there because every story that I have heard of has been absolutely terrifying, especially if it's in the Appalachian Mountains. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.
What would you do if when you were little, you made a friend behind the woods in your neighborhood, and then you realized that they've been dead this entire time? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about someone who said that the little girl kept trying to get her to crawl down into a hole hidden in the woods. When I was 8, my parents rented a house at the edge of a neighborhood with woods behind it. There was a ditch behind the last row of yards, and then brush, and then some trees. Adults just called it the woods. I was an only child, so when I met a girl my age back there, I was excited right away. Her name was Ava. At least that's what she told me. The first time I saw her, she was standing in the weeds near the ditch in a faded pink shirt and dirty white shoes, watching me like she had been waiting for me. She smiled first and asked if I wanted to see something. After that, she was just there. Every day after school, if I went near the back of the yard, I could find her there somewhere near the ditch or standing just inside the brush. I never saw her come from any house. I never saw an adult with her. She was just always near the woods. At first, my parents were happy I had made a friend, but there were things about Ava that felt off. She never came inside, not once. If I invited her in for a snack, she'd say she wasn't hungry. If I wanted to show her my room, she'd say maybe another day. She never crossed our back door, and she always wanted to play in the same place. There was a hole in the woods, half hidden under roots and weeds. It looked narrow at the top and pitch black inside. The first time she showed it to me, she crouched beside it and smiled like it was a secret. She said, "You can fit." I told her I didn't want to. She just smiled and said maybe another day. After that, she kept bringing me back there. Every time we stood by that hole, she'd say things that made my skin crawl. It opens up underneath. It's bigger once you're in. It's nicer when there are two. I did not like that. Then one day I got annoyed enough to ask her where she lived. I told her I wasn't playing unless she showed me. She led me further into the woods than we had ever gone before, and into this little clearing where there wasn't a house at all. Just rotted wood and rusted metal, a piece of collapsed structure half sunk into the dirt. I asked what it was. Then she pointed at the ground and said in a voice that dropped lower at the end like something underneath it was speaking with her. It fell on me. I ran, and the next day she was back like nothing had happened. That was one of the worst things about her. She could say something horrible, and then the next time I saw her, she'd be smiling and acting normal enough that I felt stupid for even being scared. Then one afternoon, I went back there alone. I don't even know why. I think I wanted to prove to myself that I had made her strange in my head. I knelt down at the edge of the hole and looked in longer than I ever had before. At first, all I saw was dark roots and packed dirt. And then my eyes adjusted, and I saw her. She was down there, farther down than I thought the hole even went, standing in that dark, narrow space and looking straight up at me. Her face was tipped back too far, and her mouth was hanging open. Dirt was packed beneath her teeth. One arm hung wrong at the elbow. I jerked back so hard I scraped both hands on the roots. And then she moved. She came up fast, her hands first and then shoulders, and then the rest of her pulling itself out of the hole in these quick, practiced movements like she had done it 100 times before. I ran before she was fully out, and after that, she got worse. She started asking me to crawl in almost every day. If I said it was dirty, she said the dirt was soft. If I said it was too dark, she'd say it was only dark at first. Then one evening, she grabbed my wrist. Her hand was cold enough that my whole arm tensed. She was kneeling by the hole, smiling at me in this thin, strange way, and when I finally really looked at her, her eyes were so bloodshot the whites barely showed, and there was dark little veins webbed out from the corners. And then she looked closer and whispered, "I'm lonely in there." The smile stayed on her face too long after she said it. That night, I told my mom I didn't want to play with Ava anymore. And the next day, I stayed inside. Ava stood at the edge of the yard for almost an hour, just staring at the house. And that night, I heard tapping on my bedroom window. My room was on the second floor, so I did not look. The next morning, there was one muddy handprint on the siding outside, higher than I could explain. And after that, I started seeing her less in daylight and more at the edges of things, at the tree line or between the trunks, and even across the street in the rain. And every time I heard her, she only wanted one thing: come see, just once. It won't hurt if you listen. And then one day, after I had been crying by myself near the ditch, she appeared behind me and said very softly, "It's nicer when you stop crying." I had been alone, and that was when I fully told my dad everything. He took me out there the next day and told me to show him where the hole was. When we got to it, it was almost half gone, half covered with leaves and collapsed wood and an old rusted grate. And later that night, I heard my parents talking in the kitchen. A girl had disappeared in the woods years earlier. They found her after part of an old ground cover had collapsed in. I never saw Ava in full daylight again after that, but I knew she was still there. We moved the next spring, and on the last day before we left, I went to the back edge of the yard one final time. She was waiting at the ditch. Same outfit and same little smile. She asked where I had been. I told her we were leaving, and then she asked one last time if I wanted to come see. I said no, and her smile slipped for just a second. And for the first time, I saw what had always been there underneath it: the dirt in the corners of her mouth, and the dark around her eyes. And the look on her face, it was not like hurt, it was like hunger. And then she said, "I waited so long." And I ran home without looking back. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
This is the creepiest story that anybody's ever sent me, and I'm not exaggerating. It's horrific, and we've got receipts. When I listened to the audio that this person attached to the email, my stomach dropped, and I believe this story to be entirely true. So, for the nature of the story, the person wants to remain anonymous, so we're going to call her Rachel. And Rachel emailed me saying that she's had some creepy messages on her phone since her friend passed away. Now, her friend passed away in 2021 in quite a horrific manner. She was stabbed to death. And that night in particular stands out to Rachel because they actually had plans. She was going to spend the evening together. And while she was driving to her friend's house, she noticed police cars. And when she got to her friend's street, she couldn't even drive down the street because they were already putting up tents and police tape. When she got out of her car and tried to approach the scene, her friend's house, the police stopped her. And that's when Rachel noticed her friend's sandals on the floor with blood surrounding them. And without even hesitation, she picked up these sandals thinking, my friend's going to want these later on. If anything's happened, she's going to be in the hospital and she's going to want these sandals. Now, I'm going to add a bit of gallows humour here. This girl picked up evidence. She didn't tell me if the police wanted these sandals back, because the police took all of her friend's belongings in evidence, including her phone. Now, a few weeks after her friend's funeral, Rachel was going about her business and she noticed her phone ringing, and when she looked at the number on the phone, her stomach dropped because it was her friend that had passed away. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know if to pick up, and I guess all these thoughts were in her head all at once, and maybe she thought, this is the police's way of getting in touch with her friend. So she picked up the phone and it was just static. There was no one there. So she quickly put down the phone and tried to call the number back, and the number was disconnected. What is it about creepy phone calls, man? It's just, they really, really scare me. This happened to Rachel for a few months, and Rachel, I guess, was quite close with her friend's family because she checked in with her mum every now and then just to see how they're doing since her daughter's passing. And I guess in some conversations, it was still mentioned that her friend's belongings were still in evidence, including her friend's phone. So Rachel had no idea how her friend's number was calling her phone. Like I said, these calls happened quite far and few in between. And when it approached to nearly the 1 year anniversary to her friend's passing, Rachel saw her friend's phone number on her screen calling her phone. This time, she pressed to end the call. She accidentally pressed go to voicemail, and a voicemail was left, and she sent me that voicemail. I'm going to play that audio for you in a moment. It's not very long at all, and to really listen to it, you're going to want to put your phone up to your ear. For those of you that don't listen to the audio, it sounds like static, kind of when you put two electrical devices together and they have this weird reverberation, I think that's the right word, where they bounce off each other. It also sounds like somebody's trying to speak. I don't know if it's a female voice or a male voice, and then a really ominous laugh can be heard right at the end. Like, this laugh sounds like Bowser's laugh. It's like ha ha ha. It doesn't sound like a real human laugh. So that audio really creeped me out, and as you imagine, it really creeped Rachel out. She says that when she listened to that voicemail, she thought it was somebody trying to mock her and somebody trying to make fun of it. That voicemail happened while that phone was disconnected and in the police locker. So she doesn't know how she's receiving these calls. I don't know if that was the last time she experienced a phone call, because she hasn't told me, but she wanted to share this story with me, with you guys. What do you think? Because I honestly think this story is terrifying and I don't like it. I also forgot to mention that she sent me a screenshot of a local article writing about this specific crime. That's why I believe this story to be true. Because she wants to remain anonymous, I'm not going to attach that article, but just know that I wouldn't lie about it. It's not a fun experience, especially since this actually happened to her. So what do we think it is?
Let's talk about the scariest thing anyone has ever told me. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and today I'm going to be going over the scariest thing anybody's ever told me, because the scariest thing anyone has ever told me happened 2 days ago, and it was my boyfriend who told me. And just to clarify, this is the same boyfriend that was the voice of the mimic I heard. This is the same boyfriend that was taunting the haunted doll. This is the same boyfriend who would go to the haunted cemetery. He's the same one. And what's crazy is I didn't even think it could get worse. I really couldn't. But we were laying in bed watching a YouTube video about this creator who went to Japan, and he had paranormal experiences in Japan without even trying. And my boyfriend paused it and he was like, hey, I never told you about this, and it's not going to scare you, but it is really weird. Spoiler, it did scare me really, really bad. I couldn't sleep. And I've been having a hard time sleeping, period, since he told me, because I think about it all the time. But before I get into like what he told me 2 days ago, y'all have to hear about the story he told me when we first met, because we were talking about like our first paranormal experiences. I don't know how we got on that topic, but we did. But his first experience went like this. Okay, he's in his parents' room by himself, trying to sleep in his parents' bed. I don't know why, but he's having a hard time sleeping, obviously, because it's a new environment. It's dark, it's quiet, nobody is there with him in this big room. But the way that their bedroom is set up is they have like the actual bedroom area, and then they have this walk-in bathroom, and their closet is in the bathroom that is also a walk-in. And at night, you can look into the vanity that they have in their bedroom and see directly into the bathroom and see the closet door. And that's exactly what my boyfriend was doing. He was so scared of this bathroom that he like turned over and was looking into the mirror, watching and seeing if anything was going to happen, or like if a door was closing. I don't know why he was doing this either, but he was really scared and he was trying to fall asleep. And right as he was falling asleep, like covers over the face, eyes just peeking out, the whole 9 yards. Right as he's falling asleep, he feels the bed pushed down behind him. Like someone was getting into bed with him. Ew. And he ran downstairs, and his parents were like, what happened? And he's like, nothing, I just want to be down here with you guys. And I'm pretty sure he slept down there until his parents like took him to his own room that night. Anyways, fast forward to 2 days ago. We're sitting here, we were watching the video, he's like, I have something scary to tell you. Proceeds to tell me that currently, right before he falls asleep sometimes, he feels this man grab his arm. And he hears this man's voice say, wake up. And my first reaction was like, sir, what do you mean? What do you mean there's a man grabbing your arm or your leg when you're laying on your stomach right before you're about to fall asleep? I've never heard of anything happening like that. And I immediately thought about that story that he told me. And I was like, how often does it happen? Like, what's going on? And he was like, it happens like a lot. And he says it's almost like he can feel when it's going to happen. Like he can sense when the hand is about to grab him. And he says he never feels like fingers wrap. Like it's not like a gentle, it's just very violent and it's one grab and then it lets go. He says it never happens at my house. It never happens anywhere else except his room. And when he's very distinctly sleeping on the side of the bed that is not against the wall. And I don't know, I just like I don't like that whatever it is, or if it is anything, it knows that it can reach up and grab him when he's sleeping on the edge of the bed. Because the other side of the bed is up against a wall. My boyfriend also says that it feels like something's coming up from under the bed. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
A guy passed a woman at a train station, but minutes later saw her getting off of a train that she was never on. This happened a few years ago, and it's still one of the only things I've never been able to explain. I live on Long Island, and one day I was at a train station near my house with a friend. We were just hanging out, watching trains come in and out. We were crossing one of those pedestrian bridges over the tracks to get to the other side when we passed a woman. Nothing about her stood out. She was just a normal-looking woman, maybe in her 20s. We didn't think anything of it and kept walking. Right as we passed her, a train pulled into the station below us. We got down to the platform a minute or two later, just as that same train was leaving. That's when we saw her again. She was walking down the platform like she had just gotten off the train. Same woman, same clothes, everything. It didn't make any sense. There wasn't enough time for her to get from where we saw her on the bridge, onto the train, and then back off again on the other side. At the time, I just tried to brush it off as some weird coincidence. Maybe someone who looked exactly like her. But then something else happened. A few weeks later, maybe a couple of months, my friend was on vacation a few hours away. I don't remember exactly where, just that it wasn't anywhere near where we live. He texted me out of nowhere. He said, "You're not going to believe this." Standing across from him was the same woman. Same clothes, same everything. He even sent me a picture of her. I don't have it anymore, but it was her, no question. To this day, I still don't understand it. Maybe it was just some insane coincidence, or maybe it was something else. But I've never seen anything like that happen again. I was trying to visualize in my head like what a train station looks like. So you were on the pedestrian bridge, and you passed her going this way, and somehow, by the time you walked down to the platform to see an incoming train, she was able to get off that train. Like, that's insane. There's no way that happened. There's either like some sort of glitch going on here, or that person has a doppelganger who was somehow in the same exact clothes at the same train station and also at the place where your friend was on vacation. All just very weird. Very, very, very strange story. Thank you so much, Nico, for submitting the story. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. And I will see you in the next one.
So this guy says that really weird things started to happen after his grandmother passed away. Now, he says that he was a child when all of this happened, but he was always really close to his cousin that happened to live at their grandmother's house. Some of the family members that still lived in their grandmother's home would say that they would hear footsteps at night, or like if somebody was moving the dishes. And the worst part was they would also feel as if somebody would sit on the bed while they're laying there. I would simply pass out if I felt that. So one day he had spent it with his cousin, cousin, then he decided that he was gonna stay the night there. He was gonna sleep in the living room on the couch, so he got a blanket, got a pillow, and he laid down, and right in front of him was a rocking chair. So he closes his eyes to go to sleep, and then in another moment he opens them back up, and that is when he sees the rocking chair move down, almost as if somebody had just sat on it. Honestly, it didn't feel like a big deal because he just thought that it was one of the cats who had passed by, and that's why the rocking chair made that movement. Now he gets off the couch to see if the kittens are there, and unfortunately there was no kitties around the rocking chair. See, that's where he fucked up, because if that was me, I wouldn't have gotten up to see if the cat was there. The cat was there. Let me go back to sleep. The cat was there. Yeah. That's when he decided that he was gonna extend his arm to move that rocking chair just to see why it had made that movement. Bitch, just fucking wait. He obviously tries to push the rocking chair so that it could rock, and he moves the chair. The rocking chair didn't start rocking. It stayed still after he moved it. So he tries again. He does it with a little more force this time. Hey, maybe the rocking chair was losing its touch. No, the fuck it wasn't. Rocks it again, right? With his hand, moves it. It stayed still, not moving, not rocking. Almost as if somebody was sitting on the chair. Obviously, he's very scared and he just ran to the couch, covered himself with a blanket, and he said eventually he ends up falling asleep. The following morning when he wakes up, he's looking at that rocking chair and he decides, well, let me try again. It's daylight. Let me see why it's not rocking. Obviously, maybe there's something under the chair. He extends his arm, he moves the rocking chair, and the rocking chair is moving how it should have moved last night. What the fuck? If anything, it just confirmed that something was definitely sitting on that rocking chair. He was like, yeah, the chair was rocking, going back and forth like if nothing had happened last night, like normal. Now, this person said that that's the only experience that he had at his grandmother's house, and now he's gonna tell his experience that his dad had in that house. So there was a day where they were having a family gathering, and he had already told his dad what he experienced there. He didn't think that the dad believed him, so the dad was gonna take advantage of the fact that they were at his mom's house, the grandmother that passed away, and he was gonna see if he could communicate with her. He had obviously already heard the rest of the relative stories that lived there, and now hearing what his son told him about the rocking chair, he just wanted to experience it and see if it was real. So he ends up going to this like washer and dryer room that they had on the first floor, and in there by himself, obviously he checked to make sure like nobody was around. He started to ask his mom, which is the kid's grandmother, for a sign. Let me know you're here. Do something. I need to know if you're here. And he got confirmation that his mom was still there, or at least, you know what? This is just my opinion, not what the kid says, but I'm just like, I feel like sometimes things could pretend to be your family members if you're asking for signs like this, but to him, he got confirmation that his mom was definitely there. As he's standing in that room, the door opens and just slams shut. Now, in the moment, he did get scared, so he immediately goes out of that same door, but more so because he wanted to see if anybody had slammed it. Like, did anybody in the family slam it because they heard me? And obviously, there was nobody there. Now, apparently, he has more stories of his grandmother's house, but this is all that he is willing to share at the moment. But what do you guys think? Because, like, that rocking chair, why? First of all, I would have beat up my cousin, because why the fuck you didn't let me sleep in the same bed as you? Why did you let me experience this by myself? But also, he's too curious. I would have never rocked that chair. I would have been like, cats did it, good night. Forced myself to go to sleep. But what would you guys have done?
Today's case is definitely one of the creepiest internet mysteries I've read about, and if you're watching this before bed, I'm sorry, but good luck. Selena Delgado Lopez was a young woman who went missing in Mexico in the late 90s, early 2000s. But the scariest part is nobody even knows if Selena exists at all. She had first appeared on a really popular Mexican TV show called Community Service, and it was used to help find people and reconnect them with their families. But when Selena's face popped up on the screen, all people could talk about was how uncomfortable it made them. Selena's photo was poorly lit, almost unnatural, and unlike any other missing persons case shown, there was barely any information on her, just her name, her age, and a note saying that she disappeared from Mexico on April 26th, which was kind of odd because anybody who was featured on this channel had a lot of information about them, but she didn't. Now, the creepy part is that whenever Selena's photo would pop up on the TV, the TVs would glitch out. The screen would freeze, it would flicker, and suddenly it would just cut to static. And at that point, people started started saying that her photo was cursed and that Selena's spirit haunted Channel 5. A whole bunch of people started digging through her case, and when I tell you there was no public record of Selena Delgado ever existing, like there was no police reports, no missing persons database entries, nothing at all. The only thing that was tied up to her name was this creepy photo, a photo that when you line it up, it completely matched each other. But as creepy as this photo is, it is actually a composite sketch of a real life serial killer named Derek Todd Lee. He was also known as the Baton Rouge Slayer. He would stalk and watch at least 7 women in their homes before killing them, and while searching for him, the police had composited this sketch. And somehow, I don't know how, but somehow this sketch became linked to Selena's case, which honestly only created a lot more theories about her disappearance. But that's not the end of it. In 2010, Channel 5's official Twitter account began posting some very disturbing videos in the middle of the night, like sometimes captions referring to Selena. And nobody that works at Channel 5 could explain why these posts were happening, and by morning the videos would mysteriously disappear. And then something weirder happened, but this time it was like 2020. Facebook users had started reporting an account called Selena Delgado Lopez that it had suddenly disappeared, and somehow thousands of people were already following it. Nobody ever remembered following a Facebook account like that, and they couldn't even unfollow her. Like the remove friend option on Facebook, yeah, not there. Gone. I mean, people obviously panicked, believing that like this was somehow linked to her case and linked to the curse, that maybe her spirit had taken over this Facebook account. When you say it out loud, it kind of sounds bogus, but honestly, I probably jumped to conclusions myself. But I mean, it did turn out to be nothing even close to supernatural. The account belonged to a woman who just so happened to have the same exact name as Selena, and she had actually disconnected her follow button, so the option to unfollow her just wasn't there. But to this day, some people do think that Selena was a real missing person, just a very poorly documented one. Others believe that Selena never even existed at all, that Channel 5 invented her out of thin air to scare people away, to warn them about strangers. I don't know. It has literally been 24 years since this story came out, and yet we still have no answers. I hope the photo doesn't haunt you in your dreams.
Something happened a few nights ago and I am still freaked out. So if you follow me, then you already know that my house is pretty creepy, and I get questions all of the time in my comments asking if I've ever had any scary experiences. And honestly, there hasn't been anything super significant that I feel is story worthy to share with you guys in a really long time, but a couple nights ago, something did happen. I have a 3-year-old son, and a few days ago I had to take him to urgent care because he has strep throat. So as you can imagine, our nights since then have been really rough. Well, a couple of nights ago, he woke up in the middle of the night because he had used the bathroom and was just uncomfortable. So I got out of bed, helped him with what he needed, put him back to bed, and then came back to my bed here. And as I'm laying in bed, I'm watching him on the monitor that I keep on my bedside table to make sure that he's able to go back to sleep and has what he needs. As I'm laying there, watching him sleep, I hear... So I pull my phone out and I open the baby camera app, and I'm like zooming up on the screen, trying to figure out where that noise is coming from, but I don't see anything. After a while of looking around, I think, maybe something fell down, or maybe he moved a little bit when I wasn't looking and his bed frame cracked and made that type of noise. Now, mind you, this is at 3:30 in the morning, and I'm still laying there having a hard time falling asleep, and I hear it again. That same rhythm, identical to what I heard before. My son hasn't moved. I've been watching him this whole time, and I pull up the app on my phone again, and I continue looking around his room trying to figure out where it's coming from, but I can't see anything. So at this point, I start to get a little bit paranoid, and I start thinking, is somebody knocking on his window from outside? Like, what is going on? And because we have cameras lining our entire property, I go to the app that the camera uses, and I start looking to see if any of the cameras have caught any motion. I start looking at the live footage to see if there's somebody walking around out there, and there's nothing. But I'm thinking, okay, I can see him. I know he's safe. He's asleep. Everything's okay. The door is locked. We have a security alarm set. Like, everything is fine. I'm trying to calm myself down. And I can investigate in the morning when he wakes up, because it's probably just something that fell just out of view of the camera that I can't see right now. So as I'm lying there, 3:30 in the morning, trying to fall asleep after hearing that, I wake up to the sound of giggling. Yes. I roll over immediately, look at the baby monitor, and see my son asleep, dead asleep, with a huge smile on his face, laughing hysterically. Is this not a scene from a horror movie?
When I first heard this story, it gave me literal goosebumps, so of course I had to save it because I have to share it with you because I love you so much. So this guy is a taxi driver and he receives a call around 8 p.m. to go pick up a girl that is needing his services. They gave him the directions of where he's gonna wait for her, so he gets there and realizes that this area is a really bad area. People have been robbed there, there's criminal activity, so obviously he's waiting, but he knows that he needs to leave right away. He was also really nervous because the street that he had parked in was just really alone. He was scared that somebody was going to try to rob him. When he finally sees the girl walking towards the taxi, he realizes that she's coming through one of the alleyways. He also notices that next to her was a small kid because the kid looked really short. The girl seemed to be in her 20s, and he could tell that the little short kid next to her might have been 10 years old. He sees when both of them approach the car, and it was really dark, but for some reason only the girl gets into the taxi. At this point he turns to the lady and he's like, "Oh, good evening, ma'am. Are you ready to go? Is the kid gonna come with you?" She responds to the taxi man, "Oh, good evening. No. Why do you ask?" The taxi guy's like, "Oh, I thought I saw you walking with a small kid. I was just asking because I didn't want to leave him behind if he was gonna get in the taxi with you." So as he's saying this, he's looking out of the taxi and he's like, "Actually, I don't even see the little kid anymore." So she's like, "Sir, excuse me, but I was walking alone. There was nobody with me that was coming towards the taxi. How did the little boy look, the one that was walking with me?" So the taxi's like, "I never told this lady that it was a little boy. All I said was it was a kid because I could only see how short it was. I never mentioned a boy with her." So he tells her, "Honestly, I don't know if it was a boy. I just saw a short kid walking next to you towards the taxi." He starts describing what he saw because again, it was really dark. So he's like, "Well, I could tell that they had curly hair. I could tell that they had shorts on. I could tell that they had tennies." So when he described this to her, she immediately is like, "Can we go? Can we leave? I just need to get out of here. This isn't the first time that somebody tells me that there's a kid walking next to me." So she starts saying that there's been different times where people are like, "Who is the kid next to you? Who is that boy next to you?" So she's like, "Did you see the little kid's face at all?" And he was like, "No, I could only see the silhouette because again, it was really dark." She tells him that the people who have told her that have seen this kid, it's only happening to her at nighttime, and that they describe this kid's face as really, really ugly, and it actually scares the people and it makes them go up to her and be like, "Who was this kid?" Oh, I got chills because that's not even the end of it. Apparently these people who see her at night and he's next to her tell her that when the kid looks at them that he makes faces at them. To top it off, the kid's face is scary, they're already scared, and then he makes faces at them. She always thought it was a joke because it was always coming from her friends, from people that she knew in the street that she lives on. She just thought that they were trying to scare her. She never really believed it until this night because a random ass taxi driver that she does not know is telling her that there was a kid walking next to her. And again, she was completely alone. I think the upside, she's not seeing the kid and everybody else is. That's the only upside that I see to this. She ends up telling the taxi driver, "I feel so bad because all of my friends are telling me, all the people that live on my street tell me too." And I'm always like, "Okay, you guys are lying, you're pranking me, you're scaring me," but now it is very much real. But what do you guys think?
Please tell me if you're a parent that this wouldn't be absolutely horrifying. I've been on this haunted doll story kick, so let's get into it. The story comes from Isabella, who says that she spent every single weekend sleeping over at her great-grandparents' house and was not particularly drawn to any sort of spirits or any room in this house until her uncle passed away. It wasn't until she entered her great-grandma's antique doll room where she started to feel things. And since walking into that room, she started to see her uncle's spirit everywhere. But everyone in her family kind of wrote it off as a child's imagination. And it eventually got to the point where her family started noticing that Isabella would go into this room and start talking to something or somebody. And eventually her great-grandmother started locking the room and was like, "You cannot go in there." And she didn't know why until years later. But apparently Isabella would pass out in this room, not know that she is completely unconscious, and think that she's fully awake the entire time. But every single time that this happened, she would be talking to her uncle. So eventually grandma was just like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing this." Fast forward years later, Isabella is now 16 years old and has the opportunity to see the actual Annabelle doll in person. Obviously, feeling spiritually connected to dolls, she took the opportunity to see this doll in real life, took a couple of her friends, and was just absolutely captivated by this thing. And by the end of the visit with this doll, she then goes home and immediately feels drawn to this antique doll room again. Isabella's mom was also around, and her and Isabella both gave each other this weird look. After they picked these dolls up, they're walking out of the room, and from behind them, they can hear the floorboards creaking. Isabella's mom is like, absolutely not, I'm not turning around, but Isabella does. And as she's turning around, she wrote in the email that she saw a full body apparition of her late uncle and her great grandmother picking up a very specific doll. And as Isabella reaches for it, the doll is completely ice cold, and out of fear, she drops it, and it hits the floor facing upwards, looking at her. They're both like, absolutely not, leave the room, close the door. And a couple hours later, Isabella's mom calls her to the same room that she's in and says that her great-grandmother had been admitted to the hospital. Before they leave for the hospital, Isabella says, I need to go put the doll back. She goes into that room, and the doll is nowhere to be found. I wish I would have gotten that on video because I just heard like the craziest noise in my room. I actually hated that, but whatever. But anyways, the doll isn't there. She goes downstairs and tells her mom like, hey, the doll is not there anymore. And her mom is like, yeah, right. I didn't mess with it. You're messing with me. And this is where things get weird. Before they leave, great grandma says that she wants her handmade blanket. She feels like she's about to pass away and just wants to be spiritually close to those who loved her. So Isabella goes and gets this blanket, takes it to the hospital, gives it to her grandmother, and her grandmother says, you're so sweet for going back to the house and getting me this blanket after you had gotten me this doll already. Isabella is like, what doll are you talking about? Grandma pulls from the underside of this blanket that she is sleeping in the hospital, and it is the same doll that had fallen in the room initially when she saw her uncle and her great-grandmother touching this very specific doll. And she just straight up says like, grandma, that was not me. But her grandmother is super convinced that it was, and she unfortunately passed away the next day. They didn't sell their great-grandmother's house, and Isabella says that even today, she still sees occasionally her late uncle and her great-grandmother just hanging out in that room together. The worst part about this whole thing is like the doll disappeared again after her grandmother had passed away. They have no idea where that doll or the blanket went. They eventually had some professional ghost hunters come out and make sure that the room was actually haunted and it wasn't just something that they had made up. And sure as hell, the entire room very much haunted. Very, very, very haunted. So everybody just stopped going in there just from the sheer activity that ramped up after her grandmother had passed away. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories. I just covered a story from my inbox that was from the Appalachian Mountains, and all I could think about was this video that I watched probably a year and a half ago. It was particularly a video of a woman who was a healthcare provider for people in the Appalachian Mountains who had no running water or electricity, so they would have to regularly make these appointments with her via paper. And they would mail in like 12 weeks in advance for an in-person evaluation. And this particular evaluation, she came in contact with a demonic presence. She's on her way up there, she gets there, and the house is covered in flies. Red flag number 1. And as she approaches the door, this person is just not well. And I guess she worked with a lot of like mentally ill individuals, but this person in particular would talk in plural. So it was not, I am hungry. It was, we are hungry. We have hunger. We are tired. We are sleepy. Or talk about themselves in the third person like, oh, Shane is not okay. Or he does not like that. And it started to freak this woman out so bad that she was like trying to hurry it up because this entire house was covered in newspaper on top of that. And I'm not talking about like just on the floor, like floor, ceiling, windows. It was all covered in wet newspaper, covering the windows, the door, the whole thing. And I feel like it was one of those instances where like you are there for so long, just like those pictures that you look at for too long where you start to notice things are just not right. She started to notice that something was just not right. And as she's interviewing this person, a fly keeps trying to get in her eyeball. And let me tell you something. If a fly ever is trying to get in your eyeball and is persistent on getting in your eyeball, I'm not talking about like an accident where you like fly into a bug or a bug just like accidentally lands on your eye. There is something wrong. A fly should not be trying to get into your skin. That is another red flag. And as she's interviewing this person, the fly eventually like hits her eyeball and it gets caught to the point where like she is literally like crying trying to get this fly out of her eye. It eventually comes out, she leaves, gets back to her house. I can't remember if she told her husband all about it or what, but goes to bed, wakes up, opens the door to go to her appointment, and her front door is covered in flies. I remember what the appointment was. She was going to go see an optometrist because she felt like the fly that had been in her eye for a little bit scratched her cornea. But the front of her door was covered in flies. She gets in her car, there were flies all over the place. She's like, what the hell is going on? Gets the optometrist. The optometrist is looking at her eye and says, hey, you have a fly's leg in your eyeball. Pulls the fly leg out. All of the flies dissipate. They all just go away. How the hell do you explain that? How do you explain that? Absolutely not.
This is one of the scariest stories I've ever been sent. I had a mom and daughter both message me about their haunted house in New York. So we'll read the message from the daughter first and then from the mom. And they've lived in this house since 2015. Hi, can you please make a video of a few scary things that's been going on with my house? My little sister is 4 and she keeps talking about this girl named Sarah, but me and my family have no clue who Sarah is. After a few weeks of this Sarah girl, me and my family went on a walk in a cemetery behind my house. And my little sister said, Mommy, did you know Sarah lives here? We asked her to take us to where Sarah was, and she took us to a grave and said, this is Sarah. She also hangs out with her. Then points to a 75-year-old woman's grave. We also have a history of ghosts. When we first moved into this house, we took a picture in front of it, and there were 2 people in the window, even though no one was inside. When my older brother was 16, he would say that he would wake up at 3 a.m. and see a man in the corner of his room. He is now 18 and moved out because it was scaring him so bad. When my little brother was 5, he would say he had 2 friends named Game On and Chopper. They said they wanted to be friends, and they told him to go in the lake in our backyard at night without Mom and Dad knowing. We have no clue who they are, just like Sarah. He said they live in the cemetery. Then my older brother that moved out came back home for a little bit with his girlfriend, and she said he kept saying Lucas and James while he was sleeping. Those are the people who used to live in this house. Okay, this next part is from the mom. So when we bought the house, at the time I only had 5 kids. I took a picture the day we bought it, and right away I noticed the boy in the window. My ex-husband said to just ignore it. I never mentioned the picture to my kids. Well, after 2 weeks of living here, I noticed my oldest son, at the time he was 12, said a boy and a man with red eyes would stare at him at night around the stairwell. My house is old, built in 1899. He started sleeping downstairs because he was so scared. I immediately thought of the picture I took. As time went on, we would hear things upstairs, like a chair moving from room to room. It's a gaming chair on wheels. My son's basketball would just roll down the stairs. Little things would continue. My dogs would bark randomly at night. Cabinets would slam open. My ex then said, okay, maybe something could be up. One night we were sitting on the couch after my son's birthday, and a black balloon that was kid height was floating and stopped directly in front of my ex and I. Joking around, my ex said, leave, go into the bedroom. And the balloon went under the little lip of my bedroom door and went and stopped, hovering over my bed. We then fought over who was taking the balloon out of the house. Another time, my son was 16 at the time. I had told him to take out the garbage. He said, I told Ryan, which is his brother. I said, how did you do that if Ryan's not home? He said, yes, he is. I just saw him sitting on his bed in his room. I said, that isn't possible. He's at your dad's. My son froze and said, then who was I just talking to? My other son, who was 7 at the time, said he had 2 friends named Game On and Chopper, and he said they would stare at him at night and tell him that if they want to be friends forever, he has to go play in the stream at night when Mommy is sleeping. This terrified me. He then told me they won't tell him their real names, but that they died in a house fire. And then he went on to describe what an electrical panel looked like. It then continued to my now 4-year-old daughter. She has a friend who she calls Sarah. She said Sarah can be nice or mean. She said she has put worms in her bed when she is sleeping, and that she had to sleep in her sister's bed because Sarah brought friends and they were all bloody. I am completely freaked out at all of this going on. The other day on a walk through the cemetery, I said to my daughter, "Where is Sarah?" She walked us to a little boy's grave who passed away at 3 years old. I don't know why she said Sarah when the grave said a little boy named Bobby. She then walked away to another grave and said this is who she is with. And it was a grave of a 77-year-old woman. That point, I said, screw this, we may have to move. When I bought the house, the old owners were eager to move, and they left the country. They took the first offer we gave them on the house. I'm going to go ahead and insert that picture. She also said that one of her sons would wake up with scratches all over his body, and she did try contacting a medium to try and get them to come out to the house, but they wouldn't as soon as they found out that they lived behind a cemetery. I'm not a professional, so I'm unsure of what these people could do. They really need Ed and Lorraine, but that's obviously not possible. So what should these people do to get this stuff out of their house so they can live a normal life? Maybe moving is the answer, but in this economy, that's not as easy as it sounds. Some advice in the comments would be great.
So apparently this happened to this girl 10 years ago, and she's still trying to think of an explanation as to why. Now, when I listened to this story, I was like, but I'm gonna wait till the end to tell you what I'm thinking, just to see if it's the same thing that you're thinking. Lock in, me and you right here. So at the time, she was working at a taco stand, and usually they would leave work around 3 or 4 in the morning. So basically, she had to walk home after that, and the areas that she had to walk through were a little scary. She says that there was a lot of abandoned houses, some streets didn't even have light. So after closing up, she says that her coworker insisted on walking her home because he knew how late it was and it was a little scary. They started walking, and they had barely hit one of the corners when they noticed that there was a dog walking with them now. She said the dog was like really short and cute and fluffy, and it just didn't seem harmful. She was very familiar with the street dogs because sometimes she would feed them from time to time, but she said that she had never seen this little dog before. She noticed how the dog looked at them for a few seconds and then started walking in front of them. She thought to herself that maybe the dog was just gonna walk with them for a little bit, but then she noticed something really weird. The more they walked towards her house, it was almost as if the dog knew where they were going, because again, the dog was walking in front of them and not behind them. The dog would even go towards the corner that they were gonna have to take, and it was so weird because as they would advance, they started noticing that a lot more dogs were joining in on their walk. At first, it was 2 dogs, then 5, and then so many just surrounding them. She noticed how some of the dogs were coming from like dark places, some of them were coming out from underneath cars. She also noticed another detail, and that on their walk, these dogs would start barking at them. But then that little fluffy dog that had joined them in the beginning would go up to those dogs, wouldn't growl at them, like it wasn't like they were gonna fight. It was almost as if the dog was communicating something to them, and by the time they would walk past them, the dogs would join in on the walk. So obviously after noticing that, she said that she started to get a little nervous. She would also turn to look at her coworker, and he looked so uncomfortable that she would notice that he would also look behind them because there were so many dogs just around them. So another weird thing happened a few blocks after all of this. There was really big dogs in that street, and she noticed that those dogs were growling and barking at her coworker. It was so bad that she could see like the dog's teeth as they're growling at the coworker, and he got so scared that he actually grabbed her by the shoulder. When he did that, these dogs just got a lot worse. They started barking and growling even more than they were before, and when he let go of her is when they stopped growling and barking at him altogether. At this point, she was so scared, and obviously her coworker was so scared. They started walking just a little bit faster, and that little fluffy small dog that had joined them in the beginning was still ahead of them, walking towards the direction of her house. She explains how this little fluffy dog would even run like further. He would lay on the street and wait for them to get to where he's at. He knew where they were going, and the other dogs also started joining him when they would run a little further, lay on the street, and then start walking again when they would catch up to them. She said that it got to the point where she started counting the dogs. She counted up to 40 and she wasn't done. That is how many dogs were surrounding them in their walk. She said they were big, small, short, skinny, fluffy, like all these dogs were just there with them. She explains that none of the dogs ever growled at her, barked at her, or made her feel like she should be scared of them. However, the situation itself was just too weird for her. When they finally got to the front of her house, she says that her coworker literally said goodbye and left almost running away from her. She could tell that he was so freaked out and so scared, but she says that even after this, the weirdest thing also happened for her. None of the dogs followed him. All of the dogs, as soon as she got to her house, started going to different streets. They all started going back to wherever they belonged to, and none of them actually walked her coworker home. Basically, all the dogs went back to where they belonged, and she said that the only one still with her was that little fluffy dog from the beginning of their walk. This dog stayed with her, walked up the stairs to her door with her. When she opened the front door of her house, she said that the little dog sat down, almost like he just wanted to see her walk in. Like almost like he wanted to make sure that she would get home safe. When she was about to walk in, she decided to turn around and say thank you to the dog because she just felt like the dog really wanted to protect her. And after she says thank you, she said that the dog stayed there for a few seconds and then turned around and started walking away from her house. She says that it's been 10 years and she never saw this little fluffy dog again, but she feels that something was going to happen to her that night. She strongly feels like those dogs really protected her that night. Now lock in with me. Lock in with me because this is the only thing that I thought about this entire fucking story. Her coworker, yes or no? Yes or no? I feel like he was gonna do something to her. Why were the dogs growling at him, barking at him, showing their teeth, and then when he got scared and like grabbed her by the shoulder because of how scared he was, they went even crazier until he let her go. They also didn't walk him home. I feel like they were there to make sure he didn't come back, right? Or am I crazy? Am I crazy? I don't know. That's all I could think about. Let me know what you think in the comments.
I have a really creepy story to tell you. This gave me shivers because why are people so weird? So somebody actually inboxed me this story and it actually happened to them. And girl, I'm sorry this happened to you. For the nature of the story, we're going to call the person that sent me this Amy. So Amy works in an old folks home. She loves the job. She often works night shifts. When she works night shifts, she has to walk home. She lives in a quite built up city. It's quite well lit, but she knows this like the back of her hand. So when she finishes her night shifts, anytime between 1 a.m. to 3 a.m, she has to walk home. Like I said, she knows this city like the back of her hand. So she takes some shortcuts, and these shortcuts involve walking down alleyways that aren't very well lit, which as a woman, I don't recommend anybody doing, no matter how much you know your city. So on this particular night, she finishes around 2 a.m. and she walks home. This night is memorable for the obvious reason what I'm telling you about, but also because it was the first snowfall of the winter. So everything was quite well lit because of the white snow. So when she walks down this alleyway as a shortcut that isn't lit, she could kind of see because of the snow, but also because of people's backyards, they have lights that are automatically turned on when Amy walks by them. This kind of feels a bit like a horror movie. Amy is walking down this alleyway, and as she's walking, she's being illuminated because she's triggering these backyard lights. And as she approaches one area, it triggers the backyard and she sees a figure pretty much in front of her, just standing there. She's kind of looking at it, thinking, is that a real person? Like, I don't know what I'm looking at. But as she's walking, she notices that she's seeing a face, and this face is like excited. It's got a really excited grin, like, ew, no. Anyway, Amy's hard as nails. She approaches this figure thinking it's probably somebody just outside in their backyard at 2 a.m. As she walks closer, she notices that it's a man, and he has this expression on his face that's very, very excited. Creep. So Amy kind of stops dead in her tracks, and this guy kind of like peers forward with this really excitable grin, and she takes a step back. Now Amy's really confused, and he walks closer towards her. Amy's backing up the entire time, and he says, "Hi Amy, do you remember me?" Amy's silent, as we both would be. Amy doesn't know this guy, never met him in her life. And then he says, "Amy, I've missed you, Amy. Have you missed me?" Again, he's walking closer towards her with this fucking terrifying grin. Amy doesn't waste a second. She turns around and she runs. She runs straight back to her workplace. As she's running, she hears somebody running behind her. This fucking weirdo is chasing her. What the fuck would you do? What would you do? She's buzzing the intercom of her workplace and knocking really, really like loudly, just hoping that somebody answers the door before this fucking weirdo catches up with her. Finally, somebody lets her in, but this guy is like face to the window, grinning, smiling like an absolute weirdo. They obviously call the police. The police come, they arrest him. He's got a whole manner of items on him to suggest that Amy wasn't going to go home that night. He was arrested for stalking. He had photos of Amy since she was in high school. She says that she doesn't know this guy, so maybe he was a janitor, a teacher, just an absolute fucking weirdo. But Amy girl, I'm sorry this happened to you. If you've got a scary story that you want me to share, please DM me. But also, girls, don't walk home alone at night. And if you have to, stay on the phone with somebody, share your location and walk the well-lit areas.
Maybe don't listen to this story at nighttime, especially if you share your bed. So Javier is a single dad and has a son named Martin. Javier has been really into work lately and working really hard that whenever he comes home, he's just ready to go to bed. They live in a really small house that only has one bedroom. He somehow put in a small couch in there and made room for a little table, but this is all they could afford. He does share that bedroom with his son, and they also share the bed. They're so used to sleeping together at this point. They each have their own blankets, their own pillows, and they each have their own side, so they very much respect each other's spaces. He explains that his son understands that his dad can't afford anything more than that, so he definitely understands the situation and he's okay with it. And they also only share one little dresser that is in that bedroom. So there was one night where he was extremely tired. He got home from work, didn't even say hi or like good night to his son, went to bed, and he passed out. So it was close to midnight when he got woken up because he started to hear almost like scratching in the bedroom. So the bed in the room is cornered and dad is the one that sleeps close to the wall in the bed. He explains that he remembered in that moment that he had a flashlight in that crack of the bed and the wall, and that was because a lot of the times in that neighborhood sometimes the lights would go out, so that was like the emergency flashlight because it would be a mess when he would get up to go to work and couldn't see anything. So again, he has that flashlight only for emergencies, but he's realizing that he might have not changed the batteries and the flashlight may not even work. So not knowing if the flashlight would turn on or not, he found it in the crack of the bed on the wall. He tried to turn it on, it wouldn't turn on, so he like kind of hit it twice and it did turn on, but it was very dim. So once he gets that flashlight to turn on, he starts hearing those scratches a little louder and a little more frequently. As he's pointing the flashlight around the room, he's thinking to himself, I really hope this isn't a rat or an animal that's come in here. He points the flashlight towards the door to see if the door is open or not, and it's closed. He points the flashlight to the ground and there's nothing there. And that was when he decided to turn left and he pointed the flashlight towards that little dresser that was in the room. That is where he sees Martin sitting on top of the dresser. And with a little bit of light from that flashlight, he can see that Martin's legs are like swinging, but that his hands are to the side, scratching on that dresser. He thought to himself that is really weird that Martin is doing that, but he decides to ask, Martin, are you okay? The boy immediately stops, freezes, and the dad says that he starts to see the little boy just turn like this very slowly towards where he was, asking him if he's okay. For some reason, the dad seeing his son turn very slowly towards him like that, he became immediately terrified. He's like, I had never seen Martin do this. I've never seen him act this way, never in my life. Like, why would he turn so slowly facing me? The dad again, Martin, are you okay? And the kid just continued to turn around very slowly. It was only until Martin completely faced his dad where the dad says that he can see his entire eyeball was black. Again, the dad's like, Martin, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And the dad says that he notices when Martin gets into like a little squat position and leaps to his dad. Like, he just jumped onto him like he was gonna attack him. The dad obviously screams when that happens because he's getting ready for that attack, for that impact. When he screams, he hears Martin's voice say, Dad, what are you doing? What's going on? You just woke me up. His voice was coming from next to his dad on the bed because Martin had been asleep next to him the entire time. Obviously, the dad puts the flashlight to where his son usually sleeps and he's there literally rubbing his eyes because he had just woken up. He's terrified and he starts starts pointing that flashlight all around the room and sees nothing. To this day, he has no idea what he saw in that bedroom that night, and sometimes he tries to lie to himself and say maybe it was a hallucination, maybe I was just really tired and I saw that. But then he says that he started to hear stories about doppelgangers and thinks that is what he saw that night. But what do you guys think?
So this video is going to be very different to what I usually upload, but probably the most important video I'll ever put out there. So I want to tell you all about an incident that happened to me when I was out the other night with my friends, and like I don't want this video or this story to be anything about like me, and I don't want people to think that like I'm like, oh my god, listen to what happened to me. And I also, when I do insert a clip that I did get from the night, I don't want the video to be about that person. It's more about the situation. I just want people to be very, very aware, especially young girls and boys, when they are out and like that, just to be safe. And like, to be honest, we'll get to the point, but I am going to block out the person in the video because, as I said, I don't want it to be about them. I want it to be just like, I just want to give awareness to like what could possibly happen. Yeah, like I'm going to just explain what happened and then we can kind of like go through it at the end. So basically, I was out the other night with my two friends in Dublin, and I am going to mention that I was in Dublin because I feel like that plays a big part, because I don't really know my way around Dublin. I was staying in a hotel, so like it wasn't like I was at home and I was coming home after a night out or whatever. So I was in Dublin, we were in a bar and we were leaving before the place closed. So like when we walked outside, there wasn't really many people like around. So we're very like thorough with our safety. Like we, especially myself and Lauren, like we'll make sure that we are contacting each other when we're in a taxi, contact each other when we get home, whatever. Like I feel like myself and Lauren, like we have that down to a T, that we are very, very safe. And like what I'm about to tell you, we couldn't have been more safe with this whole thing. But anyway, so we were standing outside. So it was myself, Lauren and Shane. Shane got into a taxi. He headed home. So I just wanted to make sure, like, also this was Shane's first time out in Dublin as well. So like we were kind of being very protective and being like, okay, we need to make sure that he gets home first. So he got into his taxi, and then where we were out, my hotel was literally about 50 meters away. Like I was like, oh Lauren, you get into your taxi now because I'm literally only staying over there in blah blah blah. And I said the name of the hotel. That is probably my biggest mistake, and I know I keep thinking back and blaming myself, and I shouldn't. So so I said out loud where I was staying, and there was a guy standing really close to us, but like I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really notice him until what happened next. But there was a guy kind of lingering around, but I'm not gonna lie, and like I don't want to be like, oh my god, I'm like everyone knows who I am or whatever. But like when you're out around and you're around people that are known on social media, people do kind of like stand close. So I didn't really notice him. Like that's just something that I've kind of gotten used to. But obviously I'll be more aware next time. So this guy, anyway, whoever he is, heard me say the name of my hotel. So I said to Lauren, I'm only staying over there, you get into your taxi. She's like, I'm going to stand here. So she literally had the door of the taxi. Also, can I mention that she mentioned to the taxi driver where she's staying. So like people also heard that. These are things that I would have never ever been aware of, but I'm going to be aware of now. Like you need to just keep your voice down and like don't tell anyone around, don't announce where you're staying. So she had her hand on the door. She said, I'm going to watch you walk to your hotel. So Lauren watched me walk across the road to my hotel. She stood at her taxi door. I turned around and I watched her sit into her taxi, and she said that she's not letting the taxi man, she literally wouldn't leave the taxi man drive away until she watched me walk into my hotel, like literally open the door and go in. That is how safe we were. And can I just mention, in the milliseconds of her taxi taking off and my door about to close, this man slid into my hotel, into the door. And like my point, the reason why I'm telling this story, obviously it's really, really scary, but like we couldn't have been more safe. Like we did exactly what we do every night. And like the more I think about it now, the more I'm like getting emotional. Like I wasn't actually emotional when it happened. I hate crying on the internet, actually, it cringes me out. But I think like the more I think about the whole situation, the scarier it actually gets. So this guy followed me in. So I realised he was behind me because the door, so the hotel I was staying in, the door is quite heavy. So I pushed open the door, I went in, waved at Lauren. I was walking to the lift and I could hear like, he didn't open the door again, he slid in the gap. So I could hear him like getting like basically like getting stuck in the door, and I turned around and I was like, oh my god, that's the guy that was standing outside. So I kind of like rented a lift, and my shoes were falling off me because they were slingback. Girls will know, they were just kind of like flopping. So I ran in anyway. Also want to mention, there was nobody on the reception of the hotel. That they have 24-hour reception. There was no one around. There was no security. There was nobody when I walked in the door around. And then when I saw that guy, I was like, I need to get into the lift. My mum was upstairs in the hotel room. All I was thinking of was, I want to get to my mum. So I went to the lift, got into the lift, and I pressed closed door straight away. I was like, literally, like, you know when you're in there, you're like, closed door. The door was closing, and then in slides, like, slid in the gap. It like jammed on him. And at that stage, I was like, I'm left standing in a lift now with this, like, I didn't really know what to do next. Also, I'm going to insert a video here. So straight away, I thought I need to record this. Like, I was going to ring my mum, and I was like, I don't want to scare her either. So I just pressed record on my phone. Now, at this stage, I didn't know. I was thinking to myself, maybe he's staying in the hotel. Maybe, like, I was thinking of excuses. But the main point of this whole video is, between the time that he came in the front door of the hotel and got into the lift, he took his belt off his pants. Now, I don't know, I really just want to tell this story, and like the more I never actually sat down and went through the night on my own. Oh, I'm annoying myself doing this. So, when he got into the lift, he had a belt in his hand, and I was like, okay, is this guy going to strangle me? Or, like, is he going to take his pants off? Or, like, I didn't know. So I have the video here. I'm going to insert it, but I'm going to block out his face because he didn't actually touch me. Not that I'm making excuses, but I just want you to see what had happened, like, why I think that this is, like, obviously a problem. So when he got into the lift before this video, right? I pressed the door, whatever, he got in, and I was like, okay, so I didn't press my floor number because I was like, I was scared to, obviously. I should have probably got out of the lift at this stage, but I wasn't thinking, I was thinking I just want to get to my mum. So I looked at him and I was like, do you have a floor number to press? And he was like, oh, no, whatever floor. Red flag. I should have completely got out. I was like, okay. So I just pressed record on my phone. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking, I don't know, if he kills me, will I just throw my phone away? Someone will find something. Didn't want to ring my mum, didn't want to scare my mum, didn't know. I really, to be honest, I wasn't really thinking. I think if I was like, I had a few drinks, but I wasn't like very, very drunk. But also, I feel like if I was anyway sober, I probably would have just started screaming. But I think I was afraid to show him that I was scared. I was like, this is just normal, like, we're just going to get to my room. So I pressed my floor number. And this happened. The door opened, and to this side was probably like a good, like, maybe 20 rooms, and then to the side I was going, there's only like 5 or 6 rooms. He was right behind me. Now I have another video to include here. But if you can see, I know I can't insert his face, but if you could see his face, the way he was like holding the belt, like, I was thinking to myself, I was looking at him in that video, and I was like, is this door going to open? And now I can't see him, like, is he going to strangle me? But you could see the way he was just looking, like, there's so much intention in the video. That's why I knew it wasn't, like, I knew he wasn't staying in the hotel. I knew he wasn't being nice. Like, it was all just really, really bad. Are you okay? Just a weird fella. Oh no, this guy's just supposed to be into. So to explain that part, so I started walking. He was right, literally on my shoulder. So I stopped. He stopped, and then he started walking ahead. Now to the end of that corridor, my room is the very, very last room. I had no idea what was behind that wall, so he keeps walking out behind the wall. There's actually a staircase there. He obviously realized, fuck, this is a staircase, like, this isn't a room, like, where is she going? He had no idea where I was going at this stage. I think, thank God my mum was in that room, because if I used my key card to get into my room, he would have 100% pushed in behind me, and sure, he's way stronger than me. So when I knocked on the door, he came back out around, obviously was thinking, why is she knocking, like why isn't she using her card? I'm presuming that's exactly what he thought, like what's she knocking on the door for? That's when I asked, is he okay? I was like, are you okay? And he just goes in behind the wall again. I run into my mum and like I was like, ma'am, someone's following me, so I had to ring reception straight away. So at this stage, my mum is like freaking out. She like barricaded the door. We couldn't see out the keyhole, so we were too small, so we had like these 2 stools up against, like a big like heavy thing up against the door. My mum was constantly looking at it, like I need to look out and see if he's outside or whatever. So I rang reception and I was like, a guy followed me basically from the street up to my floor. He's not meant to be here. Like I was freaking out. And this is what kind of messes this whole thing up. Like he should not have been let into that hotel. Like I personally think there should have been some sort of night porter or security on the door that takes your name and your room number. I know there's a lot of hotels in Limerick that do that. Like they need to know that you have a room, and they probably thought, now this is what he said, okay? He said, oh, I saw the guy come in with you on the camera. I just presumed he was your boyfriend. Like, not to be dramatic or anything, but imagine if I was murdered, okay? And they just presumed that this guy was my boyfriend. Like, they presumed that he was with me. Could they not? I think a lot more could have been done on the hotel side. There should be security. I'm hoping at this stage and after this story, because I did go down obviously and report it, that they have extra security so it doesn't happen to someone else. Like that is what I'm trying to get out from telling you this, is that like I want to make sure this doesn't happen again. Obviously, like we don't know, this world is absolutely crazy, but so he got into the hotel, blah, blah, blah. They looked on the security footage and they couldn't see him. They were like, so a guy came up to my room, I was explaining to him, I was like, he's gone down there behind like that wall. At that stage, I didn't know it was a staircase. And he was like, that's just the stairs. I was like, well, he's obviously on the stairs then if you haven't seen him leave the hotel. They never ended up telling me if they saw him leave, if he was still there. Me and my mum could not sleep. This happened at 2:01 in the morning. We didn't get to sleep until about 5:30. Like we were literally sleep deprived. I was like, ma'am, like we couldn't leave the hotel room. Like we were absolutely petrified, and it shouldn't have happened. Like we were so thoroughly careful with like Lauren getting into her taxi, me getting into the hotel, and still something has happened. Like I don't know what's next for young girls. Like what more could we have done in that situation? Like, do we have to carry like self-defense weapons? Like, do you know, because like God only knows. Like thank God my mum was there, and thank God that like I don't know, maybe he like didn't plan it properly, or like he was too drunk, or I don't know, but like this could have been so much worse, and this could happen to anyone. And then I was thinking to myself, like he didn't get me that night, but like what if he left the hotel and did it to someone else that was coming out of that bar? Because like when I left the bar, it wasn't closed, so like he could have went out and waited for somebody else, do you know? So I just think it's really, 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 really scary that like you just need to be so careful. And it's really sad that like we can't mention where we're staying. We have to watch each other walk in. Like we have to wait and watch our friends walk to the front door. We have to then ring them. Like when I rang Lauren and told her, she was like, Chloe, it's like Lauren then, I felt really bad because like Lauren then was trying to like blaming herself, because she was like, but I watched you, like I didn't see. And I was like, we shouldn't be blaming ourselves. Like this boy, to be honest, because he was actually the same age as me, this boy did this, like, and it's his fault. And like I don't know why girls have this thing of like blaming themselves, and like it's their fault that this happened. We couldn't have been any more careful. I really don't know what is happening in this world, and like why these young boys think. And it's not like it's not everyone, because I know like my brother would never ever do something like that, but like I just think it's awful. Like it's really, really sad, and I hate crying. Like let's just ignore the fact that I'm crying, but I think it's the more I think about it, it's like it's really scary. I think I'm getting emotional because I'm thinking of like girls that this has happened to, and like it's ended really badly, and like it's not their fault at all. So yeah, that's what I want you to just be so careful on nights out. Don't go to the bathroom on your own. Make sure that you obviously don't announce where you're staying. I think that any hotels that's watching this, you need to have night porters on. You need to take down someone's name and their room number. Even if somebody, like, maybe they thought, oh, this girl pulled this fella in the bar and she's bringing him back to her hotel room. And, like, that does happen to single girls on nights out. I have a boyfriend sitting at home, so that wasn't happening to me. But even if that is the case, take the girls or the boys' name, check they're staying in the hotel, and check that they are okay with that person going up to their hotel room, because you can't just presume. This guy could have actually killed me in that lift. There's no